Welcome to another episode. We're here today doing the Seattle Seahawks. If you've seen any of the other episodes, we're running through team by team, breaking down all the offseason transactions, the offense, the defense, any coaching changes, what we can expect this season, the Vegas predictions, looking at their schedule. Do they have any MVP candidates? What's that season look like? Are they going to make the playoffs? Every in-depth detail of every team that we can get into. We're going to bounce around a little bit now. We're going to do the worst teams first. So we're headed to the NFC West, where we're going to do the Seattle Seahawks today. Please, if you do like this video, hit that like button, hit the comment. Please hit that subscribe if you want to hear more about all the other teams in the NFL. We're going to run back through after we get done and review all the divisions, talk about division winners, Super Bowl predictions, everything like that. Well, let's get right into it. We'll start with last season. Recap of last season. They were 7-10. Not too bad, but looking at the rosters they have now, but I mean, a lot of that was Russell Wilson. They were playing for the playoffs last year. Uh, Underperformed, I guess you could say. Should have made the playoffs, could have, but they were in that tough NFC West, so they kind of hit the reset button. Not all the way, but we'll get into that more as we go along. So we'll go into the additions. With their additions, we're going to start with the draft. Looking at the draft, I mean, they had plenty of picks after they made that Russell Wilson trade. So with that trade, they ended up getting multiple draft picks. We'll get into that in a minute with the losses. But so for their draft this year, their first pick, they had a 9th overall pick. They took Charles Cross, the offensive lineman out of Mississippi State, brought him in, tried to revamp this offensive line that was horrible. I mean, Charles Cross is hopefully going to be the left tackle of the future. And that's at least what they hope for sure. Hopefully going to be a cornerstone. Like I said, they had one of the worst offensive lines last year, but he had one of the best PFF grades in 2021 at 84.9. I mean, that's great playing in the SEC for sure when he's going against some of the top D linemen in the country. So that's the cornerstone of the draft. Second pick, they had back-to-back picks in the second round. With the 40th pick, they took Boye Mafe, the defensive end out of Minnesota. He's the super athlete, super explosive. The defense, getting pressure to the quarterback was another issue this team had last year. They were 31st in the league in quarterback sacks, 31st versus the pass. So they need to get to the quarterback. They had the 10th fewest sacks in the league. So bringing him in with the 40th pick, he's probably going to be an instant starter. He'll probably start over Darrell Taylor. He's another young guy, but I expect Mafe to get the start here. They got to get to the quarterback. They couldn't get any pressure last year, so that's one area they desperately needed to improve upon. Followed that pick up with somewhat of a surprise to a lot of people, Kenneth Walker. Take him at 41. He could be the best running back in the draft this year for sure. Coming out of Michigan State, last year he had 1,600 yards, 18 touchdowns. I think they knew more about Chris Carson than what we knew at this time. He has the neck injury. There's still speculation now that he may not even play this year. Rashad Penny, they signed him to a 1-year deal, but signed him to a 1-year deal. He had the great last 6 games of the season. He finished last 6 with 706 yards and 6.9 yards per carry. Unheard of numbers, but can he sustain that? Can he keep it up? Can he stay healthy? So I think that's why they grabbed Kenneth Walker. Probably shortly into the season, he's probably going to end up being the bell cow for this team, especially with the injury history between Penny and Carson. Followed that up. Sorry, let me take a step back. With Kenneth Walker, the only knock on him, great runner, is he needs to work on pass protection. But that's something he can learn coming into the NFL. He has the athleticism, he has the explosiveness, the power to run the ball for sure. In the third round, 72nd pick, they took Abraham Lucas. Probably not going to be a day one starter, but he can definitely come in here and compete for that right tackle position for sure. Or somewhere on this line, he can definitely get in. May take him a year to get there, but I feel like he could be an offensive lineman for the future. So they take 2 of their first 4 picks on the offensive line, which is what they needed. I mean, spoke about how bad their offensive line was last year. A lot of that was overshadowed due to the fact that Russell Wilson could escape the pocket. And then they had Geno Smith, who's also a mobile quarterback. So between the two of them, they were able to bounce around and kind of get that issue overlooked. Um, to me, which was one of the steals of the draft, was them taking Kobe Bryant in the 4th round. Cornerback out of Cincy. He was overshadowed by Sauce Gardner, in my opinion. I mean, he was great. He won the Jim Thorpe Award in 2021, which is the best defensive back in the country. So them getting him in the 4th round at 109, amazing for them for sure. So, I mean, he's probably going to get some run sometime sooner than later. Uh, so excited to see what he can do. So that's their draft. Now we're getting to their free agency additions. First one I want to talk about is Uchenna Nwosu that they got from the Chargers. Still young, got him on a 2-year contract. Like I said, they had 10th fewest sacks. He had career highs across the board last year with the Chargers, and I feel like he was overshadowed somewhat in Los Angeles. But he had career highs: 40 tackles, 5 sacks, and 17 QB hits. He had 40 quarterback pressures, which was more than anybody on the Seahawks last year. So he's going to come in and make an instant impact, especially when you're talking about getting to the quarterback. So huge pickup for him there. They re-signed Quandre Diggs, one of the most underrated players, probably the most underrated player on this team for sure. They got him for the safety money that was being thrown around. They got him for 3 years at $40 million. That's pretty good when you compare it to the Marcus Williams contract and some of those others, Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, it's pretty good money. And like I said, I feel he's underrated for sure. He was a Pro Bowler for 2 seasons. He did have the injury last year in January, so hoping he can come back again this season. Hopefully getting there by week 1. We'll see what happens. With some stats for him, I mean, he had 19 interceptions since 2017, which is the 5th most in the league. So he's definitely a ball hawk. Good for the back end of that defense. He's also the only player to register 3 or more interceptions in the last 5 seasons, each of the last 5 seasons. So he's consistent. He had the injury, but he still got the money. Staying in Seattle, big re-signing for them. Another key re-signing, Sidney Jones. Got him on a 1-year deal for just $3 million, a little under $4 million. He started off horrible whenever they got him, but then he followed up the last 10 weeks of the season as the 10th best cornerback coverage back in general, according to PFF. He had a 79.2 or so PFF grade, so a key re-signing for him there to shore up that secondary. Then you get into the kind of not so good re-signings. They did get Rashad Penny on 1 year. His output's going to be based on his health. If he can stay healthy like he did the last 6 weeks, like I mentioned earlier, great. They also re-signed Geno Smith. Geno Smith, Drew Lock, still unheard of as to who's going to be the starter, day 1 starter. We'll see what happens. Does it really matter? Probably not. Another kind of crazy signing is that they re-signed Will Dissly to a 3-year, $24 million contract. Kind of crazy, being that they already now they have Noah Fant. They have two tight ends. Maybe that's because they got Shane Waldron in there as the offense coordinator. He tends to run a bunch of 12 personnel, so you might see a lot of 2 tight ends on the field. But, I mean, Dissly's more of a blocker as a tight end, and you don't see blockers getting paid that much money. So that was kind of a weird signing for them. I mean, hopefully they can get something out of him, especially being that they're paying him $8 million a year, which is more money than what Darren Waller's making right now per year. Crazy. So that's the additions. Some pretty good additions for sure. Looking at their losses, didn't lose too much outside of Russell Wilson. I mean, lost a few key pieces. Like I said earlier, they sent Russell Wilson to Denver for a bunch of nothing, in my opinion. They got Noah Fant. They got Shelby Harris. He's gonna help that D-line, but I mean, is he a game changer? Not so much. Drew Lock, a nobody. Don't even know if he's gonna be the starter. So he's just a roster spot pretty much. They released Carlos Dunlap. Bobby Wagner's the key linebacker that's gone. He's been there since the Legion of Boom days. So he's finally out. Dwayne Brown, they lost him on the line, which he's older. He's still a free agent. So, I mean, there could be a reunion there. I don't foresee it. but he's gone as well. And then they lost DJ Reed, which is one of the bigger losses that they had. And he was one of the best free agent cornerbacks available outside of J.C. Jackson and Carlton Davis. He might have been the third best free agent cornerback. So they lose all them. They kind of re-up with other players in those positions. So now we'll go straight into the team strengths for this year. Looking at the strengths, I mean, they're starting to rebuild on D. I mean, this is a younger team now. They have a younger core that they can build around. Like I said, I feel like Nwosu is going to come in and shine. They have him. They drafted Boye Mafe in the second round. He's probably gonna be the starter. He's gonna get plenty of playing time. And they got the young draft pick, their first rounder, Jordan Brooks, still trying to make a name for himself, be great. Try to be the future of this defense for sure. Wide receivers, another key strength for them. DK and Lockett. If DK's happy and can get his contract, this duo could be a top 5 duo in the league if they had a quarterback. Do they have the quarterback this year? No. But they got to get DK his money, make him happy, make him want to stay. And, I mean, the future is definitely bright if they have those two. Lockett's getting a little older, but still got plenty left in the tank. Then you had Freddie Swain. He's in the slot going into his third year, sorry. He had a few little outbreaks last year, in a good way. So I mean, we'll see what he can do. But like I said, this wide receiver group is definitely a strength of this team. DK has the most 15 or more yard touchdown receptions since 2020. And he has 11. He's tied with Tyreek Hill. But I mean, he's a deep threat. He's a big body. He can catch anything you throw to him. And then you look at the secondary. Secondary is not that bad. They got Jamal Adams. He's the chess piece, I guess you could say, for this defense. He plays all over. He lines up at every position. Quandre Diggs, already spoke about how underrated he is. Sidney Jones was great at the end of the year last year. They bring in Kobe Bryant. I think he's going to be great. So, I mean, the secondary is not nothing to laugh at for sure. So that's another semi-strength for the team. But getting into the weaknesses, and the weaknesses is what's going to kill them this year for sure. So as far as their weaknesses, first thing that stands out is quarterback room. Doesn't matter who's starting out of Geno Smith or Drew Lock. Neither one of them is going to carry them to the playoffs. They don't have enough talent around them to overlook the quarterback position, and they're not going to build up this team. It's probably a bridge year. Do they fully reset? Do they try to win 7 games again? I mean, it's to be seen, but I mean, neither one of those players has anything worth writing home about for sure. So that's the key issue. The other thing is the O-line. They're trying to rebuild the O-line, I mean, they got Cross with their first pick. I mean, they got a few names you see on here, but they got Lucas in the third round. He's probably going to get some run for sure, but it's going to take time. So that's another weakness in my mind. You pair that with the running back room, which is the third weakness that I want to speak on. Kenneth Walker may be great, but if they're running behind this line, this line has to step up, and the Rashad Penny and Chris Carson have to stay healthy. They've been unhealthy the whole time they've been in Seattle, so expect to see plenty of run from Kenneth Walker. But it's just going to precipitate. If you have bad quarterback play with a bad offense or not a great offensive line, and a running back room that can't stay healthy, I mean, you can't have too high hopes for what you can expect to see on the offensive side of the ball. So, I mentioned all this mostly already. But as far as the outlook, I mean, the defense could probably keep them in games this year, but the offense is going to be the problem. Even if defense held the teams to 20 points per game, how many times is the offense going to put up 20 points? Not that often, I'm sure. They're probably going to get big plays from DK, and this is all speaking on behalf if DK is there playing. If he's not there, they better just go ahead and get ready for that number 1 pick this year. But we'll see what happens. Defense, I feel like they're going to be the key contributor this year on this team, keeping them afloat for many games if I had to choose one side of the ball. So looking at the projected wins, they are one of the fewest. They have the least amount of projected wins remaining out of the teams we've discussed, and they have 5.5 according to Vegas. And that might be too high. I mean, looking at this offensive side of the roster. But we'll go through their schedule. Let's see, let me scroll down to their schedule. All right. So looking at their schedule, let's get into it. Week 1, they have Monday Night Football against the Broncos. Russell Wilson, I don't care if you think he's going to regress or not. He's getting older. He's not losing this game to Seattle. His first game back in Seattle. He's not going to lose it. Start 0-1. Second week, they go to the Niners. DeMeco Ryans could probably be a top 10, if not a top 5 head coach this year. He's waiting for the perfect job, so he's going to still man that defense in San Francisco. Doesn't matter who he throws out there. He's going to have that D rocking and rolling like he did every week last year. Another loss, 0-2. Week 3. This could be the two teams playing for the number 1 pick. They're both projected at 5.5 wins, according to Vegas. But, I mean, I don't know what's worse or what could be worse, especially if DK's out. Seattle's offense or Atlanta's defense. So that would be a great game to watch if you like craziness. But I feel like the Seahawks could get the win here. Like I said, it could be fighting for the number 1 overall pick. But I think they get the win here, especially it being a home game. Week 4, they go to Detroit. Dan Campbell, he had that team bouncing back and rolling for what they had as far as a roster, young team. In the second half of the season last year, I expect great things for Detroit this year, so we'll see what happens with them, but I don't think they lose. They don't lose to the Seahawks. Seahawks are 1-3 going into week 4. Saints are going to have a top 10 defense. They do have some new parts on the defense, but by week 5 they're going to have some of that worked out, and there's no way that the Seahawks can go into New Orleans, into the Superdome, Caesar Superdome, whatever you want to call it now, and get the win. I mean, that defense is just going to shut Geno Smith, Drew Lock down. Doesn't matter who's back there. Week 6, I feel like they actually pick up the win against the Cardinals. Nook is not going to be playing yet. This is the last week of his suspension. I feel like it's eventually going to catch up to the Cardinals. They start off hot and they suck at the end of the second half of the season. This happens every year with Cliff Kingsbury. But I feel like it's just going to eventually catch up to them to where they regress this year. No Nook, bringing in Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. There's going to be some issues. So I feel like the Seahawks could get the win here. Surprise a few people. AFC West, they're not beating the Chargers. Justin Herbert's top 3 MVP candidate. AFC West has to win all their games outside of their division. That division is going to be a cluster. Going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight every week. So they got to win all the games outside of their division, especially against opponents like the Seahawks. So now we're looking at 2-5 through 7 weeks. Week 8, they play the Giants. Giants, I don't expect great things from them, but I think they're good enough to beat the Seahawks. Brian Dable's going to come in there and try to get Daniel Jones to get that extension. They did pick up the 5th-year extension on him, so this is a make-or-break-it year for him. I feel like they're going to come out and win that game. Go to the Cardinals in Week 9. Nook's back. Team's a little better, but the Seahawks can't get the win. They're not going to sweep the Cardinals this year. Week 10, they go overseas. I believe it's in Germany. I could be mistaken, but it's in Europe. They play the Bucks. Doesn't matter where they're playing the Bucks. Tampa Bay, Europe, Seattle. Doesn't matter. They're not beating Tom Brady. Tom Brady's trying to get that 27th Super Bowl this year. So they're not getting the win there. Going to the bye, things are looking horrible. They're 2-8 going into Week 12. Play the Raiders. I already discussed the AFC West and all the games that they have to win. The other problem is you look at the offensive line with the Seahawks and you compare that trying to stop Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. Good luck. Drew Lock, Geno Smith's going to be running for their life the entire game. Follow that up with the Rams, another loss because Aaron Donald's going to do the same thing. Doesn't matter. Quarterback's going to be in trouble with that entire game. So now we get to Week 14. They play the Panthers at home. I don't think it matters if it's Sam Darnold or Matt Corral at this point. The defense is going to carry the Panthers, but I feel like this could be a 9-6 final, a 9-7 final, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I do feel like the Seahawks get the win here, get their 3rd win on the season. Followed up Thursday Night Football and the Niners. For some reason, I feel like Niners tend to lose games that they shouldn't lose, and this is going to be a big game for them. Week 15, getting close to the playoffs, trying to get that wild card, if not the division title. So I feel like the Seahawks can get their only winning streak of the season right here, back to back against the Niners. It all comes crashing down whenever they play the Chiefs. You think they're stopping Patrick Mahomes? I don't care who's on the defense. No. Play the Jets in Week 17. Zach Wilson, is he the answer in New York? He didn't have a game where he threw. Is either over 300 yards. He didn't have a 300-yard game or a 350-yard game where Mike White came in and put up franchise numbers. So is he the answer in New York? I want to lean towards saying no. And at this point, I feel like the Seahawks can get the win against them at the end of the season. So now we go into the last week of the season. Doesn't matter if the Rams are resting people or not. Seahawks aren't beating them. So with that said, I have them going right under the Vegas prediction and going 5-12 this year. I mean, without the quarterback, without having a great quarterback, it's going to be a long season for them. So now getting into the top players in each of the positions. With every video I try to say, oh, which position could have a top 5 or a top 10 player. Looking at this roster, I don't think there's anyone on here who can be top 5. DK could if he had a quarterback, but he does not have anyone anywhere near close enough to be incompetent to be top 5. Top 10, I feel like Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs. Jamal Adams, whatever position you want to put him in, he could be a top 10 player at whatever position you want to name. And then Quandre Diggs also. He could be great again. He was great last year. He's very underrated. He could definitely be top 10. MVP candidates, not a chance anybody on this team's an MVP candidate. Most improved player on the roster. I mentioned him multiple times already, but Uchenna Nwosu. I feel like he's going to come in. He's still young. He's still great. He's athletic. He's going to be a great linebacker and going to get a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. He's going to come in and shine here where he couldn't as much in Los Angeles with the Chargers. So I feel like he's the future. He has a chance to take on a big role here, and I feel like he'll take that role and shine. Drop-off candidate. I mean, we've talked so badly about him so much already, but I think it's Geno and Drew. They're not going to be able to carry this team. I mean, this is their last chance to shine, and they're probably not going to be able to. They hadn't shown us any reason to have faith in them, and I don't expect anything different this year. Best outcomes for them this year. I mean, best outcome is that Geno or Drew is a top 20 quarterback. If they're a top 20 quarterback, the Seahawks could win 7 or 8 games. If they can get them to scoring 20 points per game, 7 to 8 games would be great for them. Maybe even 9. But, I mean, that's the best outcome. I don't expect it. Worst outcome is they suck, as I've predicted. Running back room, it's going to be the Kenneth Walker show. The injuries are everywhere. DK doesn't want to re-sign. At that point, I feel like they're playing for the number 1 pick for next year. Rebuild CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. End every episode with the most intriguing thing for the team. Most intriguing thing for me, I have a few things. How long does Seattle take before they get into tank mode? I had them going 2-8 going into the bye. Do they go full tank mode at that point? Go for one of those top 2 picks? We'll see. Does Pete Carroll last the whole season? This is not going to be a great season, I don't believe. So, do they keep him in Seattle? He's been there long enough. Feel like his time may be getting close to being over. Does DK stay? Does he get that contract? If he doesn't get the contract, does he sit out? Does he play? Want to see that as well. And one other thing is I hope they don't engage with Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah, they could make this team possibly average, but why be average when you can reset, get you a quarterback for the future? Those two are not your franchise quarterbacks for the future, so don't waste money, effort on them. I mean, you might as well just reset, get one of those top picks, and play for the future. So with that said, that's our rundown of the Seattle Seahawks. I'm intrigued to see what they do this year. They're one of my more liked teams, but I don't think it's going to be a good season. But I do hope to be proved wrong for sure. But if you've made it this far through the video, please hit that like button. Let me know what you like in the comments, what I need to improve upon. I'm still learning, still trying to get better with every episode. And please hit that subscribe button if you feel like it. I'm going to be releasing an episode on every team, division recaps, predicting other things within the season. Going to get more involved once the NFL season is actually here with weekly recaps. But please hit that subscribe button. If you like the NFL, if you want to see some gameplay, I'm doing MLB The Show now. Gonna be picking up Madden here soon whenever it gets rolling again in August. But until next time, take it easy.